Hi everyone, and thank you for being here for our Pride Month reading. This is One Art's second Pride reading. We did one in 2025, and I think it went swimmingly. I think we can agree. And maybe some of y'all were at that one. I'm joined by Louisa Schneitman, who's contributing editor to One Art, and she is co-hosting. Kai Kagan was supposed to be one of our featured readers today, and she wanted me to send love to our readers and attendees, and is sad that she can't be with us. Without further ado, well, let me say actually who our featured readers are, and then I'll introduce our first reader. So we have with us as featured readers Julie Weiss, Nicole Cruiser Garcia, Abby E. Murray, Moody Spady, and Ren Wilding. And first up, we have Julie Weiss, who is in Spain. And so it's nighttime in Spain. So we're letting Julie go first in order to spend as much time as possible with us and listen to our wonderful readers. Julie's author of The Places We Empty from Kelsey Books 2021, which was her debut collection. She's also author of two chapbooks, The Jolt and Breathe Ablaze, 21 Love Poems in Homage to Adrienne Rich, volumes 1 and 2, Bottle Cap Press. I'm pretty sure, I think a couple of those were in One Art. Her second collection, Rooming with Elephants, was published in 2025 by Kelsey. Poem written in the 8 seconds I lost sight of my children was a finalist for Best of Nanette, and she won the Sheila Nagig Editor's Choice Award for something that I'm going to mispronounce because it's en Espanol, and was a finalist for the Saguaro Prize. Her work appears in Chestnut Review, Mom Egg Review, MER, One Art, Up the Staircase Quarterly, Variant Lit, and is forthcoming in Cider Press Review, Cimarron Review, the Indianapolis Review, and Swim, which I love. Julie lives with her wife and children in Spain, as previously mentioned, and I'll drop a link to her website in the chat. Julie, thank you so much for being with us all the way in Spain.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me go first. And I have to apologize because apparently this microphone isn't working. So I'm going to try to speak as loudly as possible. Um, to begin with, I'm actually going to read from my two chapbooks, my Adrian Rich chapbooks, and I'm going to start with the Joel. And I'm going to start with the poems that were published, that Mark and Louisa published in One Art. These were the very first poems from this chapbook that were published before it became a book. Okay. 10. We pore over each painting, fantasizing ourselves into the corner of a 19th century basement studio. My breasts exposed for the sake of your masterpiece, swelling under your artist's stroke. Pretense after pretense, falling, your marriage a sham. You can't touch me like that in a museum, but I could very well plunge over the edge of my imagination. Later will be all glaze and splash, wordless. 12. Listen, our lives are not our own. The afternoon could, while we're making love, explode into a billion yesterdays. I've never seen the strings of human existence dangle so flamboyantly from the fingers of madmen. How many tombs of ruthlessness must we bury our poems in? Hear my scream, more terror than climax, want inconsequential. Still, if the earth splits in two, I'll cling to you and it will be enough. 13. This city and all its tragedies, every street we cross pinned down, groaning under the weight of something that died, unwilling, a dream, an affair. It's almost enough to make me guzzle moonlight from the broken beer bottle at your feet. But you're not after a poet's despair. You're pulling me into the after hours gay bar where I'll discover an intoxication of city nights under my frenzied hands. 15. More bird than human, I've crossed waters to reach a land that didn't wither under the gaze of my desires. I revel in the cliche of your balcony where I've come to perch. Half naked wine glasses, morsels of queso de tetilla, pun brazenly intended. The voluptuous Iberian night, its dance, our hands all over its starry hips. Even in sleep, you come again and again to all the places my body has been clipped. 20. Dreaming it had gone a different way, I skid off the rails of sleep, crash into you. I came to you more wrecked than I care to admit. Bones are like that, marrowed out of letdowns. Extraordinary how the planets colluded to lure us onto the same wrong train. How you melted the scrap heap of my past in one sizzling glance. Te quiero, you say, and mean it. A whale sends us hurtling. How our children will continue this poem. And now I'm going to read from volume 2 because volume 1 was so much fun to write. I wrote a second volume after the first one was published. And if you look behind me, this is the village where this one is set. It's called Broto in Huesca in Spain. So this is from Breath Ablaze. 2. How long since I walked these streets at the hip of a woman, my breath ablaze, the oak shadowing our path, bare but for slips of snow, your cheeks flushing wine red at every turn of the wind, making me wonder if you come from somewhere warm and flat, or if you can feel my thoughts jolting along the tracks of your banter, your suitcase overflowing with the history I long to unpack. 9. Your moan enfolds me like rapture, as if we weren't in this candlelit restaurant, ladling hearty spoonfuls of sopo sense into each other's mouths, dramatizing every sappy cliche I've ever mocked. I'd happily mince all of me into a fusion of flavors just to glide down your throat. You studying me with your maestro's eye, how I defied snow and ice to dine in a place where everybody is a stranger. 10. Tell me, do all subjects fall for the artist drawing them? Or am I a golden eyed trout swimming straight towards a holt of illusion? Don't be fooled by the shiver altering my pose. I wear winter like a blanket pulled over my bones, but I've never felt the fingers of a gaze raise desire on my skin quite like this. Ask me how much I'm willing to take off. No te muevas, you say, captivated. I'm lined, shaped, restless for strokes of color. 17. You spill out of my bedroom wearing nothing but an oversized shirt, translucent as a jellyfish. as your intentions, buttons loose, glimmering to be undone. Me stunned, aching for you to wrap your tentacles around me. It's below zero outside, yet the heat crackling between us is enough to burn down these walls, this land. The pot of oysters on my stove, steaming. Shuck me, you say, and though I don't understand the words, I know dinner is a delusion. And finally, 20. Asombroso, how time and space conspire to merge our lives. Your train ticket wedged between the seats of the coach you abandoned on a hunch. My reluctance when she resurfaced, asking for another chance. My home brimming, poised in afterglow. Soon winter will crack open, water rushing everywhere, the earth releasing its breath at last, the glorious emerald fields buzzing around us, wildflowers in the thousands, making love to the season. Thank you.
Beautiful, Julie. Thank you. I noticed you broke out some of the sexy poems. I feel like that's not what I'm used to you sending me for one art. So some nice surprises there. Change of pace. Well, that was wonderful.
Thank you very
So,
much.
aw, thank you, Julie. Next up, we have Nicole Caruso Garcia. Nicole's author of Oxblood, which I actually happen to have a copy of on hand right here.
If you notice, if you look in the upper left-hand corner of the book, there's a very faint rainbow. You can't see it really on the screen, but you can see it in person.
It's true.
There's a little ever so faint rainbow going right through the O.
I had not noticed that before. That's a good Easter egg. So, Oxblood from Able Muse Press, which received the International Book Award for Narrative Poetry. Nicole's work also appears in Crab Orchard Review, Light, Mesokamen, One Art, Plume, Rattle, Rhino, and elsewhere. Her poetry received the Willow Review Award, won a Best New Poets honor, and has been nominated quite a few times for Pushcart and Best of the Net. She is, I believe this is still true, Associate Poetry Editor at Able Muse, and served as an executive board member at the annual conference Poetry by the Sea, which I had the opportunity to go to once, and it was incredible. And I'll drop a link in the chat where you can check out Nicole's website. Nicole, thank you so much. Excited for your poems.
Thanks so much for having me.
Of course.
Okay, so for the poems I'm going to read today, I'm going to start off with some poems that are a little more on the I'd say distressing side, and then we'll move into some love poems, and then we'll get silly. I like to say that it's kind of like I'm the pilot, this is the airplane, and although we're going to experience some turbulence upon takeoff, we will reach a comfortable cruising altitude, and then we'll come in for a smooth landing, ending up in a very different place than we started. So the first poem is called Appraisal. Once raped, you wear it daily. Learn to see the cut, the color, clarity, and carrot. Each time you try to square asymmetry, it cleaves, reveals another jagged facet. Fool, you think it fits inside one poem. No. Map with calipers and microscope your story since you came to wear that stone. Flawed and heart-shaped, bluer than the hope. Since you must wear it, hone it with precision. Leave your wrists unslit, the blood unbled, to cut and polish sin to scintillation. Woman, rise up from the rhinestone dead. Yet, what can cut a diamond? Nothing can, except the hardest substance known to man. The next poem appeared in One Art. It's called Ghost Ship, and thank you very much for having this in the magazine and nominating it for Best of the Net, which was very exciting. Ghost Ship. At a distance, candles guttering can look like party lights. The way a ghost ship might seem from shore. It may have seemed I was carousing. It may have hurt you seeing my illuminated decks, my painted flags livened by wind. Despair is so immaculate a plague. A healthy vessel still will float, although you pillaged all the spirit from its hold. A ship like that may run aground or wreck against the cliffs. Adrift between the quick and the dead, it is not sorry, does not love or hate. It lists. This poem I dedicated to Stefan Clark, who died March 18th, 2018. Law enforcement killed him. And this poem's title is also the title of where this happened, which is Sacramento. Tongues of gunfire pierced the darkness in Sacramento. A body camera, a body lifeless in Sacramento. Cradled by the grass of his grandmother's yard, a man lay weaponless in Sacramento. How thick the night when mercy did not look or could not find this man's address in Sacramento. Justice washed her hands of it. A man condemned by 20 bullets, not one less, in Sacramento. Suspend the officers, investigate. Yet what could bring redress in Sacramento? And so we learn they shot him in the back, uncuffed their fear, anonymous in Sacramento. Who now will give his kids their daily bread? Two young ones, fatherless in Sacramento. Let the little children come to me. Sweet Jesus, witness this in Sacramento. The next poem is called I Never Fell in Love with You, and it's for my partner Carlos, who's, well, we've been together, I don't know, at least 30 years, but so this is for him. I never fell in love with you. To fall in love implies a lack of choice, as if I were cartoonish, maladroit, and love an open manhole to avoid. To fall suggests a kind of loftiness, that I began in some exalted place and not the airy of my loneliness, to fall like rain or tears or mercury, a pawn of Cupid or of gravity. No, with my grappling hook, I climbed precisely. To fall, kerplunk, is stumbling, imperfection. Now, I would brave the hot tar of rejection to wear the ermine cloak of your affection. I built a trebuchet and aimed to sail beyond your moat, over your castle wall. I launched, I soared in love. I did not fall. And here's a new-ish poem. Um, it's an ode to a cement mixer. I like the way you move, you buxom thing. Venus of the roadways, you mesmerize. Since girlhood, I've been drawn to your mystique, the perfume of your chalky diesel heart. I like you painted, girdled with a zigzag stripe, how, though men fix to steer you straight ahead, you gyrate in burlesque. You're born for bi-directional trajectory, and wet with the revolution, you protest. You know what fools will try to set in stone. The next poem is written in a form that Mary Merriam invented, which is called the basic me form, where you take a word that's a single syllable, um, and then you have like a particular rhythm that comes after that, da 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 da. And it's supposed to be like for the first initial words on the ends of the lines, like what are your words and how you would define them. But instead of writing a basic me poem about myself, I wrote a Pobis Ars Poetica. So this is like kind of how poetry would define itself instead of how I would define myself. So Pobis Ars Poetica. Form is a slippery seed to be grasped. Free verse is form with its bra hook unclasped. Blocked is me chewing my fanciest pens. Pun is a test of my spouse and my friends. Drunk is the poet who's making a pass. Prize is a unicorn chased by an ass. Tome is Uranus-sized ego unbound. Deep is the grave of my darlings I've drowned. Rhyme is the hill where I'm willing to die. Meh is the mic hog who sounds like AI. Crit is a sig from a firing squad. Light is the thirstiest verse. Please applaud. Oh, thank you. The next poem is My Dirty Bedroom Secret. It wasn't always a taboo, but now is cause for shame. And oh, you know the thing I mean. And oh, it has a name. Our kinks should be addressed. Why not? My husband didn't mind, whether I was all alone or we were intertwined. I'd like to praise it openly. It's healthy, not exotic. In my defense, it didn't used to be unpatriotic. Invented by a clown of theirs, it made right-wingers cheer. My friends are libs and libertines. It's their rebuke I fear. my money in the pockets of that mustache wacko guy. I cringe to think we nearly kissed democracy goodbye. So rest assured, I feel some guilt about this peccadillo. I don't know how I sleep at night on Mike Lindell's My Pillow. And lastly, I'll finish up with a poem I often like to finish up with. It's an homage to two things that I was mesmerized by as a child. Two of my early influences. One was Wonder Woman, and the other was my mom had this LP of Rapper's Delight by the Sugar Hill Gang. So like once I wasn't reading Shelf Silverstein and Dr. Seuss anymore, I was listening to that and uh, just being completely mesmerized by the rhymes, the rhythms. So I thought, like, what would Wonder Woman sound like if she were a rap star? Um, you know how very often the artists will like introduce who they are and talk about themselves in the rap. So this is just simply called Wonder Woman as rap star. Diana Prince, that's who I am. Born in 41 after the war began. Like Rosie in her Riveting for Uncle Sam. I'm a woman just as super as any man. I come from Paradise Island, only women together, but mighty Aphrodite. I couldn't stay forever. I hitched a ride with Major Steve Trevor and went undercover on a secret endeavor. I can bend steel bars, but my strength is equal. When spitting rhymes that slay, I'm that lethal. No heavy gold chains there, I'm regal fighting evil. I rock a red bustier with blinged out eagle. If villains shoot me, I deflect it. If they lie, my lasso will reject it. If a wrong comes along, I will correct it. I'm a tough cookie and you better respect it. When a crook or a hater unleashes drama, I send him crying to his mama. Ain't gonna let the bad guys harm ya. I believe in peace, but I ain't no Dalai Lama. Peace and justice, that's my credo. And navy blue, I'm incognito. All the brutes in cahoots are gonna bleed, or I'm an Amazon princess in the star-spangled speedo. Thank you for having me.
Amazing. So many things. Nicole, unstoppable. So Nicole's amazing and a hard act to follow. Obviously, very good performer. Good person to take notes from on performance and pacing and obviously formal verse. So wonderful. Goodness. Okay, and it occurred to me too, because you read a new poem, that nobody can really like easily yell out new shit in this scenario, so I guess you can like yell it out in the chat. Um, it's just the nature of online readings. So yeah, again, wow. And don't worry though, because Abby is going to be able to follow Nicole, because Abby is also amazing. So, Abby E. Murray, they, them, is the editor of Collateral, a literary journal concerned with the impact of violent conflict and military service beyond the combat zone. Their first book, Hail and Farewell, won the Perugia Press Poetry Prize, which is a mouthful of alliteration, and was a finalist for the Washington State Book Award, while their second book, Recovery Commands, which is behind me to the side here, okay, we'll gather that in a moment, won the Richard Gabriel Rumens Poetry Prize and was released by Ex Ophidia Press in 2025, and for now, at present, I suppose, they live in the Pacific Northwest and teach writing to military officers. Abby, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you so much, Mark. Thank you for the invite. And yeah, the Perugia Press Poetry Prize, if you have a wet mouth, you're fucked. Like, that's a really great alliteration, like the Perugia Press.
It's killer.
Yeah, that's a good one. I thought that I would start with reading from the book. Oh, and here, you didn't have it close, but I have my copy right here. Yay! It's really, really great artwork. The Japanese artist who did the artwork, he has this whole collection of pieces. They're really large pieces in iron and steel, and they all look like they're disintegrating. Like if you see really up close, like the pieces of the caribou are going away. And I chose it because I was thinking about it. And I remember telling my mom, I was like, yeah, describing the pieces, how they're disintegrating. And she was like, oh, that's so strange. I look at it as they're coming back together. And so I really like the artwork on this. And Recovery Command speaks to kind of like a constant recovery that I find myself in. I'm a pacifist and I'm married to someone who's active duty in the military. We met because I was protesting School of Americas, and he was in ROTC, and we've been arguing for about 25 years. So, and my books kind of go into that experience and what that's about. You can imagine that as a non-binary pacifist, I'm wildly popular in military circles. So I thought I would share a poem from this book. And actually, there's a poem in here that's kind of seasonal. It's how to be celebrated on Father's Day. So I thought I would start with that one. How to be celebrated on Father's Day. They'll say you ought to be a man, but they say that every day, not just today. And they say it with words and without, making you wait longer in line, ignoring your calls, dismissing your blurred vision or blood. You can do anything while bleeding. On Father's Day, they'll expect you to cook with fire. Remind yourself that you've been leaning over flames as long as anyone. But if burgers sound good, go ahead and brush off the grill. There is nothing confusing about charcoal, propane, knives, or a hungry mouth. Just as there is nothing unknowable about engines, a light switch, or giving away what you've earned. Drink a beer full of bubbles or don't. Opt for scotch or don't. But at some point, sip like the sovereign you are today. Like each swallow is a toast to your mental health and the kind of fatherhood anyone can practice. Singers of lullabies, the bone weary and brave, my dear father mothers, mother fathers, father figures, humans who care what happens. Your shoulders perfect for piggyback rides and crying. Your generosity ungendered and informed by more than parenthood. I raise my glass to all hands that fold and bathe and braid. Eyes that stay open far too long so that someone else can rest. Any father worth a family will declare this is your day. You deserve it. I haven't read that poem out loud in a while. Oh, thank you. I'm going to read a poem from One Art that was just published, the Political Love Poem. This poem, I wrote this after I was talking with a state poet laureate recently, and I asked him, how are workshops going around the state considering the climate of our country right now? And he said, they're fine. And I said, have you noticed any increased tension? And he said, no. And I was like, gosh, what are you doing? And he was like, I'm not political when I teach poetry, which I thought was really interesting. And of course, my next question was, gosh, how? Like, how are you not political? I feel like everything is political. We know this. And so I went and wrote this poem about, I think it was around Valentine's Day. And I was thinking like I wanted to give a love poem to my partner. And I was like, I can't give you anything that's not political. So I wrote this poem. Political love poem. For my political love, I wanted to get you something apolitical, but all I could find were roses and the socialist movement. All I could find was chocolate and colonialism. I wanted to give you something untouched by human mistake or cruelty. No diamonds, no flights to countries safer than this. A friend suggested I offer you mathematics, the objective truth of numbers. Did you know Pythagoras was murdered? Did you know Einstein discovered refuge in New Jersey? Is there even such thing as harmless small talk? If there was, I'd buy a coat made of its fur for you. Each hair some creamy comment about the weather. Here is a blue sky warmed by man-made drought. Here is a mountain you can climb to see just some of what's been stolen. My love, I'd give you nothing if it wasn't also ruined, if it wasn't also its own long history of lack. I'd put my hand in yours if only its bones and tendons weren't brought to you by so much more than devotion, theft, and injury, centuries of trespass, the wallop of our humanity on a breakable earth. Thanks. And then I'm going to read a poem. This poem was published recently too, and it was in a Hole in the Head review. There we go. This is called In Praise of Plastic Flowers. Because I come from a long line of bisexual, non-binary pacifists married to cisgender hetero army officers. And because the opening of this poem is a lie, but a sweet one, a silk flower of a sentiment. I just want to say it somewhere. I am not alone. I inherited what is good from people who tried to do right, but also did wrong, who enabled pain while cultivating love where it wasn't expected to grow. My grandparents appreciated bowls of painted stone grapes and apples because it showed them what plenty might look like on their tables. Every day is an argument in favor of surprise. I show my daughter how to twist a plastic plumeria blossom, the color of margarine, into her hair, because real plumeria blooms far away from where we are, while the Dollar Tree near our house is bountiful with 10-cent knockoffs. And I remember how little beauty has to do with exactness. It is more concerned with what we hope about the contradictory world, that it remains both soft and calloused, rare and everywhere, that it is what it has been and what it could be too. It's always so weird to read in a Zoom room and it's like so quiet. I feel like I'm reading to my dog and like she's just bored out of her skull. It's like, God, when are you going to stop talking? Okay. uh, this next poem is, oh, I wrote this when I was a desert rat, when I went to the desert rat residency, and I was reflecting on kind of my identity. I was raised Catholic, and I was thinking about the experience of growing up in a church and thinking about God. This poem is called God is a Drag Queen. It makes all the sense in the world and then some. Hair spun up to the clouds and an ego capable of reaching from outer space down to the deepest basement dive bar, where God is a drag queen. Because how else do we explain camp, or the perfect eyebrow, or a trans woman's happy sachet over the darkened runway of your fear? God, how do we explain the way human joy predates human hatred? Or the way a disco ball lifts up a single flicker of light and multiplies it, scatters it like a school of silver fish? I was raised to be a sad Catholic in a dim church where the cantor died of AIDS before he ever heard the bitter ladies admit his voice was a rhinestone tiara whose sparkle they never earned. He turned it toward them anyway. His Judy Garland surfaced on a cassette tape 3 days after he disappeared, so my sisters and I could follow him over the rainbow after catechism, or whenever we noticed our loneliness. He taught us how to hope without seeing, how to search for holiness and let it live in a great pair of ruby red heels. I don't remember when the priest died, but he's the one who told us to agree that heaven is not like most of this earth, which is how I learned paradise is a stage littered with the glitter of our best selves. God is a drag queen who bends gender, then shows us the magic behind the trick. Nothing to it. All we have to do is exist. See how the smoke over so many prayer candles rises in twists and curls, each whorl different from the rest. God is a drag queen who appreciates curves and contours. The Holy Spirit is alive within us like a good beat, like the urge to dance or laugh. Once, as I walked alone through a cold night in the city, God threw her arm around me and sang, reminded me her milkshake was better than mine. And amen, I say to you, it was. Like that poem. I'm going to end with this recent poem. I was talking to a poet about, like, I think that every poem is a how-to poem. Like, I haven't seen a poem yet that's not a how-to poem. And then I was like, oh shit, I think every poem is actually a war poem. If you think about it, every poem is a war poem because everything is touched by war. And anyway, it snowballed. This is called Every Poem is a Love Poem. And thank you again, Mark, for the invitation. Thank you all for listening. I really appreciate it. Every poem is a love poem. I'm near the ocean with the other pebbles and seagulls and driftwood. Harbor seals surface and dive in the frigid waves, surface and dive. A little morning theater just for me, I decide, feeling celebrated. Every poem is an aubade. I can never tell if a pod of splashing seals is playing or dying. I suppose it's both. We make a game of defending our lives. Every poem is a war poem. Nothing I can see on this shoreline except myself is fearful. Not the pebbles, the seagulls, the ocean, the driftwood. Even the maybe playing, maybe dying seals. And all I can think of are reasons to be afraid. Every poem is a how-to poem. My hands are warmed by a cheap paper cup of coffee. The seals tumble further down the beach, underwater and alive, and yes, playing, I think, as if predators and winter are just details in a story about the magnitude of happiness. Every poem is a love poem. Prove me wrong. Thank you.
That was a beautiful place to end, Abby. Thank you very much. Yeah, I love Abby's poems so much. I've been known to send these absolutely ridiculous, not super professional emails when Abby sends submissions. And I'm just like, oh my God, what is going on here? I'm losing my mind. I just sort of can't hold back. But I feel like, yeah, it's just a really cool editorial experience when you get submissions that are, just like blow you out of the water. And Abby's poems consistently do that, and it's really awesome. And I note occasionally one art gets something like between 15 and 60 poems a day, or sorry, submissions a day, which I don't know. I think the math is something like ends up being like 1,200 submissions a month or something like that, and yeah, and then the acceptance rate's somewhere between like 2 to 4%, but like usually around 3. But anyways, I guess all that to say that you read, like I read so much poetry, like an inhumane amount of poetry. So when I'm blown away by stuff, it's very exciting. So that was my big endorsement. So thank you for being here and for reading, Abby. Okay. Next up, we have Moody Spati, a Lebanese American poet, author, and contemplative educator. Born in Texas and raised in Lebanon, he moved to the United States at the age of 18 as an evacuee following the 2006 July War. In Utah, Moody founded and operated Lizzie's, I think that's how you say it, Lizzie's Kitchen, a Lebanese restaurant celebrated by the New York Times as, quote, the future of queer dining. This is so cool. I love this whole backstory. Moody was also named plaintiff in Kitchen vs. Herbert, the landmark case that brought marriage equality to Utah and the 10th Circuit states in 2014. A lifetime stutterer, he is passionate about writing and poetry as practices in fluency and self-expression. And as everyone has ever said ever, the fact that the word stutter and stutterer is like the word that we selected for that seems like some kind of cruel joke. Just like, what? It's like impossible to say. His memoir, Habibi Means Beloved, is from University of Utah Press, and poetry collection that I'm going to totally mispronounce. So you got to help me out, Moody.
Alhamdulillah.
Thank you.
Anyway,
Is from Fernwood Press and is set to be published in fall of 2026. So please tell us more, and thank you so much for being with us.
thank you, Mark. It's been a pleasure to hear all the poets today and to join in this circle. As you heard in the introduction, I'm a person who stutters, so you might hear me repeat or block or pause or click my tongue. And what I usually say is I'll invite you to use my stutter as a cue to breathe. So my hardship can be your mindfulness practice. And one benefit of this is that it gives me a poetic pause, um, which is really good. So I'll start with a very short poem titled Queer Theory. It's simple, really. Every being arrives with an inborn desire to become their very own expression. Our task is to encourage and celebrate the emergence of it all, as a gardener would, as God does, if only because our possibility is intimately dependent on that very possibility in everything and everyone alive. Um, so my partner is here, Taylor, and he's a pianist and a singer. And one beautiful thing about being with a pianist and a singer is that you can request your favorite songs. So this one is t titled On Sharing a Life. The version of Country Roads I love the most isn't the original. It's the one my lover plays at random times throughout the day, when maybe he thinks I'm not listening in my room. But I perk up every time, stop and pay attention to the music flirting my ear from the other side of this life we now share. Do you know how tender it is to witness someone in their practice? How holy it feels to bear testimony to the soul's evolution? How could we, the world, I mean, act so bothered by each other? Not be astounded by the presence of a beauty aching to burst out and longing to be taken home, down God's own country, into the arms of the beloved, to the place we ultimately belong. Um, this poem is from One Art. It was published, let's see, June of last year. So how appropriate. Actually, June 7th of last year. Incredible. Great. This is titled Whale Shark, and it's a true story. A whale shark, according to the 5-year-old at the climbing gym, is what happens when a whale eats a shark. Just like that. It's simple. Everything is separate, and when two things join, they just add to another. The shark doesn't die in this story. Nothing changes. The world is still safe, predictable. The whale shark was his favorite tattoo, but now it's erased. My full sleeve tattoos don't erase though, and they're the biggest ones he's seen. Like really big, like really, really big. I thought of how when sorrow consumes joy, they don't simply add to each other, but become poignant. And when gratitude spills into grief, together they create the conditions for surrender. Or even how water and flour make bread, not water flour. Some things get lost along the way. But I didn't tell him this, that a whale shark is actually a shark, just a really big one. I wanted more to believe in the simplicity of his world, in the authenticity of how things join, then come apart, and in the process, nothing is changed. No one dies. We just continue to appear and disappear into each other's lives unaffected. Our our innocence not yet capable of breaking. This poem was written in response to a storytelling event here in Boulder by parents of transgender adults. And it's written in 10 couplets for the 10 folks that shared their story. And um, I used what they shared in their story in the poem. And one last thing I'll say is there was a person with a violin that played as they told their stories. So this is titled What Love Requires. To begin with, love requires a violin. Love requires a violin held in the arms of a seasoned man with a smooth shaven face whose eyes close at every croon of the bow. Like this. Exactly. Love requires the croon of the bow, insists on euphoria, insists that you listen, says joy for you and for me, says you are perfect however the universe sent you, says let the walls come down. Love says you must take the risk to blossom, must expand to meet their bigness. Love takes off her shoes, walks barefoot across the stage. Love imagines a bright future, draws a map for how to follow one quiet act of courage after another, asks, are you with me? Love builds angel wings large enough to protect even the heckler from their misguided direction, rides a horse across the plains, lassoing every willing heart. Like this, exactly. Love requires that you extend a hand asking, when did you know? Love wants you to become a student of your own child. Love arrives at your doorstep in the middle of the night after a journey in the shadows, asking, do you have any idea? Do you have any idea how beautiful? Do you have any idea how beautiful my child is? Thank you. I'll read two more poems. This one, well, two and then a really, really short one, if that's okay. Um, this one is titled, What Can I Tell You About Our Life? Besides the sheer delight of it, and how full of music it is, piano mostly, and poetry certainly, and daily walks through the neighborhood trails, which often include animal encounters, as yesterday when a raccoon ran up the tree and watched us with curious eyes and flattened ears, then showed its full face when we sang to it. And tonight, arriving home, he arranged a bouquet for me, chrysanthemums, hypericum berries, carnations, one sunflower, one rose, while I read him poetry. And now, as I write this, he is singing. He is filling me with a music I never imagined, a love not expected, not deserved, nor promised. Remind me the flowers at the altar, who last for perhaps a week, sometimes more, and return glad in purpose to their real home, the ground. This poem is titled Like a Girl. Soon as the music played, I'd hoist myself up onto my tippy toes, sway my hips, frolic my arms in the air like wind-blown silk. The adults were quick to admonish, don't dance like a girl. Throughout the years, I was chided for a list of girl-like behavior. Don't act like a girl, talk like a girl, walk like a girl. After the shaming came the stoic encouragement. Act like a man, talk with confidence, and عيب استحي على حالك. literally shame, shy away from yourself, interpreted as shield your disgrace, stand with dignity, have you no self-respect? But the Lebanese girls I know could throw a fisted tongue at any man that dared cross a boundary, danced like silk water, juggling pomegranate pearls in the socket between hip and thigh, walked like they were God's staff, parting seas ahead of them, acted like they belonged and did, held a man's dignity in their palms and knew just when to grip. And of self-respect and shyness, of disgrace, you should have seen the way Mama stood straight spine on the long stems of her heels, her face blossoming towards the sun against every odd. And this last short poem, since I see that the poet Laura Foley is in the room, um, uh, the poem Quiet Listeners is a poem that my partner and I share together as part of what brought us together. And so this poem is titled Quiet Listener. I read you a poem about trees the night you came over. You cried. That's when I knew. That's all. Thank you all so much.
Oh, that is too sweet, Moody. Too sweet. So, so good. And I'm delighted that you read Whale Shark, which I think about all the time. That poem makes me extremely happy. So, thank you so much for being with us and for reading your work. It's been a great joy. Okay. And everyone should look up the backstory of Moody and the restaurant, and it's fascinating. I took a deep dive and really enjoyed it. Okay, so last but not least, we have Ren Wilding. They, them is a trans, queer, neurodivergent poet. They're the author of Trans Artifacts, Bones Between My Teeth from Pork Belly Press, 2026, and Trans Archaeology, Lily Poetry Review, which is forthcoming in 2027. Their work appears in Braving the Body from Harper Editions, Nix's Mate, One Art, Palette Poetry, and elsewhere. They were a finalist for Lily Poetry Review's Paul Nemser Prize, a two-time Pushcart nominee, and co-creator of the Words Like Blades reading series. They hold an MA in Literature and Gender Studies from the University of Missouri and live in St. Louis. Ren, thank you so much for being
Thank
here.
you so much, Mark, for inviting me, and thank you to all of our poets today. You all were beautiful. Okay. A lot of these are love poems, and we have one difficult poem at the end. They, them. When I first came out as non-binary, I went by she, they. I was afraid no one would use they, and the inevitable conflict. I dropped she when that's all people used, and I couldn't erase myself any longer. So when you say, fuck it, and change your pronouns to be what you truly want, I'm bringing gummy bears. I'll adorn you, rings, pins, a t-shirt, wallpaper the whole room, the bottom of your shoes so your feet leave impressions of you with every step. But you don't need fireworks because you're a 1990s laser light show set to orchestra music. That was a new one, and this is also a new one. Anytime, dude. A photo of a bag of serrano peppers pops up in my notifications. The store is out of habaneros. That works, thanks. Anytime, dude. Theodore, my grocery shopper, has no idea he gave me gender euphoria with a single word. He can't see or hear me. My name makes him think I'm just some other man on the other side of the transaction. When people see me, I get she/heard to oblivion. When they hear me say my name, they add 3 extra letters I didn't say or spell and resurrect my dead name. But Theodore sees my name and calls out across the digital void to that part of me who is a little bit of a boy. I look at the word again and again. That's right, I am a dude. I'm more than that, a long list of capsaicin cultivars, but I am a little bit of a dude. And of course, we have to have an Andrea Gibson reference. The title of this poem is a line from their poem Pole Dancer. The key to finding love is fucking up the pattern on purpose. You made a big deal about showing me your Andrea Gibson tattoo as we drank coffee at 10 p.m. It was before I had a tattoo, when I could still drink coffee late. You asked me to your apartment for a movie and showed me your bedroom copy of The Ethical Slut with the door wide open. In an alcove, we sat on the sofa under a blanket without touching. It was before I'd had sex with a woman, before I'd had sex at all. Your roommate walked by, and nothing about this was private. I didn't know what you wanted, so I went out with you again, just to see what you would do. And this poem, I believe, was in One Art. The title is a lyric from the Indigo Girls song, The Power of Two. Chase all the ghosts from your head. In high school, I recorded a Liz Phair song off the radio on a cassette. The only love song I'd ever heard that didn't specify gender. I only played it late at night, volume so low I had to put my ear against the speaker. I didn't know who I wanted to love me. The first person I fell in love with burned me a CD of love songs, the front decorated with Sharpie rainbows. First track, The Power of Two by the Indigo Girls. I played it on repeat in my car for months after we broke up, trying to replace the heart I forgot on the nightstand beside their bed where we slept. This is another new one. This is actually for my wife. Mosh Pit as Labyrinth. In the early days of using my new name, I went to an Against Me concert in a small, grungy venue in one of St. Louis's 2 queer neighborhoods. I wore my black Melting Heart t-shirt and green khaki moto jacket, undercut freshly shaved by R. Subtle nods of recognition passed between me and other trans people in the room. When we want to, we find each other. It was my first punk concert, and R warned me to stay away from the stage. But Laura Jane Grace was a fucking siren. 2 people beside us were riding a high that made them touch me like they knew me. I pushed them, creating a ripple big enough to start a mosh pit. Grabbing R's hand, I pulled her out of the building. She teased me the whole way back to the car. I warned you about the mosh pit. Not only did you not believe me, you started it yourself. I felt powerful. I created the monster and I saved the girl. This one was also in One Art. Valentine's performance. My belly was full of crackling eggshells as I helped the girl working on the student production of the Vagina Monologues pass out flyers and ply students with cake. But I had to leave the carnival of vulvas to meet my bi-curious art major girlfriend, who barely touched me. I gave her a note with a pressed violet inside, and she gave me nothing. All I wanted was to kiss the theater girl, our mouths smeared with frosting. This one was also in One Art. Fisherwoman. I forgot my lungs when I swam from her. Fish scales shiver my skin. My lips pass seawater as barbs hook me by the jaw. She reels me from the water. A dread of air passes over my gills in a lacework of burning. Seaweed strands weigh me down, her hands on my skin again. She needs to do it right this time. Scrape my scales, become covered in the sequins of my body. Slice and strip my belly until all that's left is the sweetness of me she wants in her mouth. I am flotsam, I am gills, I am gasped air. Okay, this is the hard poem. Content warning for attempted suicide and Nazi treatment of trans people. My most recent manuscript, that was just completed, is about the history of what happened to trans people during the Nazi era in Germany. And most people died or disappeared. And this was the only story that really had a happy ending. Claude and Marcel were French surrealist artists. Claude was also a poet and Jewish. I wrote this manuscript because history is repeating here in the US right now. Claude Cahun and Marcel Moore, non-binary lovers who resisted Nazi occupation and lived. I took a paper, a pencil. I wrote Sieg, Nein, Krieg, on end. Victory, no war, without end. Claude Cahun. Claude and Marcel write on end on cigarette papers and secretly scatter them throughout the Nazi-occupied Isle of Jersey. Signed, Der Soldat on Namen. Sowing little sand grains of doubt as they witness starving enslaved laborers on the beach through their window. Soon, Nazi soldiers seize rooms in their home. They pull out their contraband typewriter and make tracks signed "The Soldier Without a Name" behind their locked bedroom door. Leaflets questioning Nazi policy and the war appear on cars, on shop shelves, tucked into German newspapers, anywhere a soldier might see. It takes 3 years for the Nazis to catch them with a pamphlet in a bag in the entryway of their house. Their camouflage of middle-aged spinsterhood made them invisible. They swallow pills on the way to prison, hoping to OD. They survive, thinking the other is dead. In solitary cells, they both attempt suicide. Before their trial, they each learn the other still lives. The Nazis only half believe they did what they are accused of, even as they sentence them to death. Notes pass through air ducts and the hands of other prisoners. In more lax moments, they see each other briefly. They don't know when they might be killed. The Allied forces land at Normandy, and their death sentences are commuted. Claude and Marcel are finally allowed in the same cell. Together, they wait for liberation. They were liberated, of course, and they both continued to live on the Isle of Jersey together and continued to make art, although Claude's health was never the same. Thank you all so much. It's been wonderful to be here.
Thank you, Ren. That was extremely powerful, and in general, just really powerful imagery in your work. And thank you for reading so many One Art poems too. So thank you to all of our readers, and thank you to our attendees for being with us for once again another incredible Pride reading. And now we will have some Q&A and community time for those who are able to stick around.